My parents evicted me to let my sister and her husband move in, so I built my own house. And now they're begging for a room they'll never get. I'm a 28-year-old guy. And for most of my life, I've been the kind of person who believed that hard work and family loyalty always paid off. That belief shaped everything I did, especially the years I spent helping my parents renovate our old house. It wasn't fancy, but it had history. It was where I grew up, where I learned to fix things with my dad, and where I promised myself I'd someday make my parents proud when I started earning a decent income. I made a choice that felt right at the time. I stayed home to help with expenses. I paid the utility bills, covered the mortgage for a few months when my dad's hours were cut, and even used my savings to repair the roof and repaint the place. My mom used to smile and say, "You've got such a good heart, son. Lily could learn from you." But the thing is, Lily never did. My sister, Lily, has always been the golden child. She could make a mess, and somehow I'd be blamed for it. She could disappear for months, and my parents would still talk about how brilliant and misunderstood she was. I used to laugh it off, convincing myself that being the dependable one mattered more than being the favorite. I remember the smell of sawdust in the living room when I installed new flooring, the sweat dripping down my back, and my mom bringing me lemonade like it was a small reward for a huge sacrifice. "You're making this place feel new again," she said. And I felt something I'd been chasing for years, acceptance. But looking back now, I realize how naive that moment was. I wasn't rebuilding our home. I was unknowingly laying the groundwork for the biggest betrayal of my life. It started one ordinary Sunday morning. I was fixing a loose cabinet hinge in the kitchen when I heard my mom's voice echo from the living room, soft, trembling and excited. "She's coming home," she said. I poked my head out, confused. "Who's coming home?" I asked, even though deep down I already knew. My mother's eyes lit up like she'd just heard the best news of her life. "Your sister, honey? Lily's coming back. With her husband." That name, husband, hit me harder than I expected. I hadn't even been invited to her wedding. I hadn't seen her in almost 3 years, not since she left for the city chasing bigger dreams. She used to call occasionally, mostly to brag about her brand collaborations or business projects, all while asking mom and dad for temporary help with their credit card bills. But now, she was coming back and moving in. The week before her arrival, the house transformed overnight. My mother suddenly wanted the guest room repainted. My dad rearranged furniture. Somehow my tools, clothes, and even boxes from the storage closet started vanishing. "We're just making space," Mom said casually. "You have too much stuff anyway." I brushed it off at first. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe it was just her usual favoritism showing through again. When Lily finally walked in, she looked like she'd stepped out of a commercial designer purse. Manicured nails, fake smile. "Hey, big brother," she said, kissing me on the cheek, as if the past didn't exist. Her husband, Matt, followed, all smug confidence and expensive cologne. "Nice place," he said, scanning the room. "You've done a lot of work here." I wanted to feel proud hearing that. But something in his tone made my stomach tighten. I didn't realize it then, but that casual remark wasn't admiration. It was foreshadowing. Because from that moment on, the house I helped rebuild would stop feeling like mine entirely. The first week after Lily and Matt moved in felt manageable. I told myself it was temporary, just until they got back on their feet. I even helped Matt move some boxes into the guest room, still clinging to the idea that family helps family. But slowly, the energy inside the house began to change. It was in the small things at first, the way my mom stopped asking me to join dinner, how my dad avoided eye contact when I paid the electric bill, or how Lily's perfume lingered in the hallway like a quiet reminder that this wasn't my space anymore. One night, I came home late after work and found my dinner plate already cleared from the table. "You should have told us you'd be late," my mom said flatly. Lily and Matt needed to eat, so I just made enough for them. It wasn't the words, it was the tone. That cold, dismissive tone that said, "You're an afterthought now." Then came the comments. Matt would sigh loudly whenever I walked into the living room. "Man, this place feels a bit cramped, doesn't it?" he'd mutter. Or Lily would laugh about how mom and dad finally have company that doesn't live in the basement. I didn't say anything, but each jab chipped away at something inside me, A few days later, I walked into my room and found Lily sitting on my bed, scrolling through her phone. "Just needed to rest for a second," she said casually. My closet door was half open. She'd moved her old clothes into it without asking. My chest tightened. "Lily, you can't just—" But she cut me off. "Relax. It's a family house. You don't own this place?" That line burned more than I wanted to admit. I looked around the room I'd paid to renovate, the walls I'd painted, the floor I'd fixed, and realized something terrifying. For the first time, I didn't feel like I lived at home. I felt like I was intruding in my own life. It happened on a quiet Wednesday evening, the kind of night where you expect peace, destruction. I came home from work, exhausted, only to find my parents sitting at the dining table, side by side, with faces that looked rehearsed. My gut told me something was off before anyone even spoke. My dad cleared his throat. "Son," he began, "we need to talk." I set my bag down slowly. "What's going on?" Mom avoided my eyes. "You've been such a help, truly," she started, her voice trembling just enough to sound sincere. "But things are changing. Lily and Matt are planning to start a family, and they need space. It's only fair." For a moment, I thought she was joking. "What do you mean by space?" I asked, half laughing. Then I saw the envelope on the table, a formal eviction notice already signed. My name was printed in black and white, like I was some tenant they barely knew. "You can't be serious," I whispered. "I paid for the renovations." Dad cut me off, his tone firm but distant. "It's still our house, son. You've done your part, and it's time you learned to stand on your own." I felt my throat tighten. Stand on my own? I've been the one holding you up for years. I paid the bills. I fixed this place. Mom flinched, but said nothing. Lily appeared in the doorway, her arms folded, a small smirk playing on her lips. "It's not personal," she said softly. "We just need a little peace." That word peace snapped something inside me. I went to my room that night, sat on the edge of the bed I'd built with my own hands, and stared at the walls I'd painted. I should have felt anger. All I felt was disbelief, the kind that numbs you. By the time I looked around, the place didn't even feel like mine anymore. Every nail, every screw, every ounce of effort I'd poured into this house had just become theirs. Leaving that house felt like tearing my own heart out. I didn't even fight it anymore. What was the point? I packed my things in silence, while my parents avoided eye contact, pretending to be busy. Lily stood near the door with her arms crossed, sighing dramatically every few minutes, as if I were the inconvenience. The final blow came when my dad handed me a small box of tools. "These are yours," he said, like he was doing me a favor. Those same tools had built half that house. I drove off with everything I owned, stuffed into the back seat of my car clothes, some old photo frames, and a lifetime of disappointment. I didn't have enough for a deposit anywhere, so I checked into a cheap roadside motel that smelled like cigarettes and bleach. The flickering neon sign outside my window buzzed all night, mocking me as I lay awake, staring at the cracked ceiling. That night was the first time I truly felt homeless. The next morning, I looked at my phone, no missed calls, no messages. Just silence. My own family had erased me like I was an inconvenience they'd finally gotten rid of. I spent days moving between work and that motel room, eating instant noodles, wondering how everything had fallen apart so fast. I kept replaying it in my head, every late bill I covered, every weekend I spent fixing their roof. Every moment I believed I was helping. I'd given them everything I had, and in return they gave me nothing but an empty room and a fake goodbye. Then one night, sitting on that motel bed with my last $20 bill in hand, I made a decision. I was done being the dependable son. I was done trying to earn love that came with conditions. If they wanted me gone, then fine. I'd build a life so far beyond their reach that one day, they'd regret ever opening that door. Something changed in me after that night at the motel. Maybe it was anger, maybe exhaustion, or maybe the quiet realization that I had nothing left to lose. I started showing up early at the construction site where I worked, volunteering for extra shifts no one wanted, mixing cement under the scorching sun, hauling bricks until my hands blistered. It hurt.
Ow.
but that pain felt cleaner than the one my family gave me. Physical pain heals. Betrayal doesn't my supervisor. A gruff but fair man named Carl noticed my persistence. One evening, after everyone left, he handed me a bottle of water and said, "You've got drive, kid. Ever think about learning more than just labor?" That moment planted a seed. Carl started teaching me small things, reading blueprints, estimating material costs, basic design. I began staying late, asking questions, sketching ideas on scrap paper at night. In that same dim motel room, I'd watch YouTube tutorials on construction management and budgeting. Every paycheck I saved, every dollar I didn't waste, became a silent promise to myself. I'll never let anyone have that kind of power over me again. Months turned into a year. I started managing small renovation projects on the side, fixing porches, repainting apartments, repairing leaks. The clients trusted me because I worked like someone with something to prove. And they were right, I did. One night, while driving home from a job, I passed my parents' street. Out of habit, I slowed down. The house lights were on, laughter spilling through the windows. For a split second, I thought about stopping, about walking in and proving them wrong. But I did, instead. I drove past, gripping the steering wheel tighter. I wasn't that version of myself anymore, the one who begged to belong. I was building something new now, not just a skill, but a life they could never take from me again. It took me 2 years of non-stop work to reach a place where I could finally breathe again. Every shift, every overtime hour, every aching muscle had led to a single goal: to never need anyone's permission to exist. When my savings finally hit the number I'd been chasing, I didn't buy a car, or take a vacation, or celebrate. I bought a piece of land on the edge of town, small, quiet, a little run down, but it was mine. The first time I stood there, boots sinking slightly into the damp soil, I could almost hear my dad's voice in my head saying, "You're dreaming too big?" I smiled at the thought. Maybe he was right back then, but now, I was ready to prove that dreaming big wasn't the problem. Trusting the wrong people was. I started sketching at night, rough outlines on scrap paper. Mixing ideas I'd picked up from Carl and blueprints I'd studied online. My dream wasn't just a house. It was a statement. Every wall I planned represented a boundary. Every room symbolized freedom. I didn't want luxury. I wanted peace, something my parents' home never gave me. By the time the foundation was poured, I was working 16-hour days, splitting shifts between construction jobs and my own site. Carl would drop by sometimes, shaking his head. "You're building more than a house, kid," he said. "You're building your spine." The nights were the hardest, lying in a half-built structure, under an open sky, wind whispering through the beams. But even in the loneliness, there was a strange calmness. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was trying to prove my worth to anyone. I was finally creating something for myself, and as the walls began to rise, so did something inside me, a quiet, unshakable sense that one day, those who threw me out would come knocking again. It had been nearly 3 years since I last saw my parents when their car suddenly pulled up outside my new house. I was in the middle of sanding down a doorframe when I heard my mother's voice, soft, tentative, too familiar. "Oh my God. Look at this place," she whispered, stepping out with that practiced awe she used whenever she wanted something. My dad followed behind, hands in pockets, acting casual. I froze for a second, dust covering my arms. Not sure whether to feel proud or furious, they stood at the gate like tourists admiring a landmark. My mom finally said, "You've really done well for yourself, son. It's beautiful." Her tone was half compliment, half guilt. I forced a polite smile. Took a while. Inside, my pulse raced. I wasn't ready for this, not the small talk, not the nostalgia they came in, commenting on every detail like they were walking through a museum of their lost control. "It feels so peaceful here," my dad said, running a hand along the kitchen counter. "You always had an eye for design." My mom laughed nervously, adding, "Lily always said you were talented." Hearing her name still felt like swallowing glass. When I asked how they'd been, the silence said everything. My mom's voice cracked. "Things haven't been easy." Lily and Matt, they're having problems. She went on about how the marriage was falling apart, how they were struggling with money, how the house just doesn't feel the same anymore. I nodded, pretending to listen, but all I could hear was my own heartbeat. They were circling around something. I could feel it. Every word was a setup. Every compliment, a rehearsal. When they left that day, my mother hugged me a little too long. "We're so proud of you," she said softly. But her eyes weren't filled with pride, they were filled with need, and I knew it wasn't the last time I'd see that look. It started with small, polite calls, the kind my mother never used to make unless she needed something. "How's work, sweetheart? Eating well? You must be so tired, building that house all on your own." I'd answer briefly, sensing the hesitation in her voice each time. After a week of friendly chatter, the truth finally came out. One evening, her tone shifted. "Son," she began slowly, "we're in a bit of a situation." I stayed silent, letting her talk. "Lily and Matt, they're separating. He stopped paying the mortgage months ago, and now the bank's after us. We co-signed for them, and we might lose the house." Her voice cracked at the word lose. For a long moment, I said nothing. I could almost hear the echo of my father's words from years ago. "It's still our house, son," and now that same house was collapsing under their decisions. Finally, I asked quietly, "So what are you asking me?" There was a pause long enough to confirm everything I already suspected. Then came the sentence I'll never forget. "We were hoping maybe we could stay with you, just for a little while." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the freshly painted walls around me, the ones I built alone. The irony was almost poetic. They'd thrown me out to give Lily her fresh start, and now they wanted to move into my home because she'd destroyed hers. I kept my voice steady. "You want to stay here?" My dad chimed in, his pride buried under desperation. "Just until we sort things out. You've got space. And family helps family, right?" That last line hit like a dagger. Family helps family. The same phrase they used when they evicted me. I didn't answer right away. I could feel the past pressing against the present. Every memory clawing its way back. For the first time in my life, they needed me. And I wasn't sure yet what kind of son I wanted to be. I told them to come over the next day to talk it through. My voice was calm, almost detached, and that alone should have warned them something had changed. When they arrived, they looked smaller somehow, not physically, but in presence. The confidence they once carried, the control they once had over me, was gone. We sat at my dining table, sunlight spilling through the wide windows I'd installed myself. My mother clasped her hands nervously, while my father kept adjusting his glasses like he couldn't find the right words. I took a deep breath. "So," I said evenly, "you need a place to stay." My dad cleared his throat. "Just for a few months. Until we can get back on our feet. You've got the space, and family helps family, right?" I interrupted. The silence that followed was heavy enough to fill the room. My mother's eyes darted to my face, but I didn't flinch. "Do you remember the last time we had this conversation?" I asked quietly. She blinked. "What do you mean?" I leaned forward, voice low, but sharp. "When you told me to leave, when you said Lily needed space to start her family, when I packed my things and slept in a motel while you helped her decorate my room for her husband." My father sighed. "Son, that was different?" "No," I said firmly. "It wasn't different. It was selfish. You threw me out of the home I paid to fix, and now you want a room in mine." The air went still. My mother's eyes filled with tears. "We made mistakes, but we're still your parents. We thought we were doing the right thing." I shook my head. "You weren't doing what's right. You were doing what was convenient." They both went quiet then. For the first time, I saw guilt raw, comfortable guilt cross their faces. I stood up, gripping the edge of the table. "I'll think about it," I said softly. "But don't expect the same kind of son you once knew." I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the porch until sunrise, listening to the wind rustle through the trees, staring at the house I'd built from the ground up. Every brick carried a memory of the pain they'd caused, and yet a part of me still felt that old ache to be the good son. The one who forgives, who helps, who sacrifices. But that version of me died in a motel room 3 years ago. The next morning, I called them back. My mom answered, her voice shaky. So, have you decided? I took a deep breath. Yeah, I have. They came over again, hope written all over their faces. My mother even brought a casserole, a weak attempt to make it feel like old times. I didn't sit this time. I stood near the door, arms crossed. I've thought about your request, I began, and the answer is no. My dad's smile faltered. What do you mean no? You have space. You can't just turn us away, Ken, I said quietly. And I will. My mother's eyes welled up instantly. We're your parents. You're really going to let us struggle like this? I exhaled slowly, steady but sad. You didn't just let me struggle. You made me. You watched me pack my things and leave a house I paid to fix. I begged for your approval, and you gave me a 30-day notice. My father's voice broke into anger. We were trying to help Lily. You're holding a grudge over family matters? No, I replied, meeting his glare. I'm holding boundaries. Big difference. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother whispered, You've changed. I nodded. Yeah, I finally learned what peace costs. They left without another word. The sound of their car fading down the road was strangely liberating, like the final nail in a coffin. I'd been trapped inside for years. That night, after they left, I sat on the same porch again, the one I built with my own hands, and listened to the quiet hum of the world outside. For the first time, silence didn't feel empty. It felt earned. I thought about everything that had led here, the nights in that motel, the exhaustion, the humiliation, the endless hours of work, and realized I wasn't broken anymore. I was free. Over the next few weeks, my parents stopped calling. I heard through mutual relatives that Lily had moved back in with them temporarily, and that their old house was now on the market. The irony wasn't lost on me. The home I once fought to stay in was crumbling, while the one they threw me out for had become their lifeline sometimes. Late at night, I'd catch myself remembering the boy who begged for their approval, the one who thought love meant obedience. I'd look around my living room at the framed blueprints on the wall, the small plant near the window, the smell of pine wood from the floors, and realize that boy finally got what he always wanted. Not their praise, not their acceptance, just peace. I never called them back. Not out of spite, but out of self-respect. Forgiveness doesn't always mean opening the door again. Sometimes it means keeping it closed. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I stepped outside and watched the light hit the roof just right, glowing warm, steady. Mine. I smiled and whispered to myself, they once took my roof away. Now I live under one they'll never call theirs again. It wasn't revenge. It was justice. Quiet, unspoken, and complete.